So for my auditory listeners, this video will just be me reciting the document for the strategies that you can find in the description below. For my visual learners, you should actually just click off of this video by going down to the document, reading that, because all I'm going to do here is I'm not actually going to be going through any problems because there are no sample questions for this one. Instead, I'm just going to be reviewing the actual content of the document. Maybe I'll talk about some other strategies as well that I just have as that might not be listed here. So if you are a visual learner, read the document, come back to the video, and then you'll have a good understanding of what I'm saying. And then when I get to parts that you might not have read about, then you can just jot down some notes for that as well. So with that introduction aside, let us get into the lesson for today. So today we're going to be going over some more SAT prep. It will be reading strategies this time. Again, we're not following that chronological order. First was SAT math with no calculator, and now we're getting into some SAT reading. Okay? So the first strategy we have here is read the blurb. What is a blurb? A blurb is just what in AP Lang what we would refer to as the context for the document, right? That little slip of information that might be in italics. Normally, I believe it's in italics, right before the passage starts, okay? Just read that. It has some useful information that you might want to use or utilize for your questions, and it has some just basic information as to the passage, where it's from, its publication, and the author or authors, okay? Now our next strategy is something that is also useful for AP Lang, multiple choice as well, and so this is called bracketing. Bracketing is where you read the questions from a page first, and then you take those questions, and then you find where in the passage that question is referring to. So if the question says in lines blah blah blah, then you would put a bracket next to between from line blah to line blah, and then you would write next to that bracket the question number. So in the case on the document, you can see here, I have the question 2 is marked right there, okay? And so knowing that we can bracket as such, we read the questions first, then we mark our brackets. After we do that, then we can start reading the passage. Okay, so when we read the passage, we skim through the parts that aren't bracketed. When we get to a part that is bracketed, however, we read that thoroughly to find the answer to the question. And then once we finish reading that bracketed part thoroughly, then we look to the side, look at the question number that is. So in this case, it's question 2. So in that case, we would go back to, after we read that bracketed portion, we would go back to question 2 and we would answer the question there. All right? And so you would do that for only one page of questions. Not for all the questions for that relate to that passage, but only for one page. All right, and then once you finish answering all those questions again, again, like I said in the last video, the SAT Math with no calculator, you're going to read all those questions, do the bracketing. Once you answer all of the questions on one page, then you will bubble them in. All right, don't answer one question, then bubble in, or answer all the questions and then bubble in at the end. You should do one page, then bubble in, do another page, bubble in, and so on and so forth. Okay? Now, our next strategy is pretty much a general strategy for the SAT. It's easier questions first. All right? So in the SAT, it is a general strategy to answer the easier questions first. Determine your question preference by understanding the different types of questions that might appear on the SAT section. So each SAT section has different types of questions that it could appear. I recommend actually going on to the College Board website and looking at the different sections for each section, right? The different subsections for each section. Like for math, you would see like solving algebraic expressions, linear equations, inequalities, other things like that. All of those different sections you're going to be scored on differently, and that compiled score is what's going to determine your actual score. Okay, so based on how well you do there, that will determine your score. Alright, and it also tells you, and if you've already taken the SAT, I recommend that you go back to your scoring outline. Just look at your score, scroll down a little bit from just the 2 numbers and then the big number as well. And then you'll see all the different types, and that will also teach you what it is you need to focus on. You can use my website for anything math related. I'm not sure that reading, that my website's going to be any useful for reading or writing. Alright, maybe a little bit, but most likely not. So in that case, for the reading portion of the test, I will list the different types of questions that you could see. So description, which is like is best described as, then you answer. Evidence, which is which choice best supports. Vocabulary, like most nearly means. Summary or central idea, which is the central idea or which best summarizes. Purpose or function, which is what function or what purpose does it serve. What is the author, and then for implication questions, like what is the author implying, or what does this imply, what does this mean, and then just finally you have interpretation of data, like charts and graphs at the end of a passage. So you're going to have at least one passage that has some data that you're going to need to do some interpreting with. Okay? And the next strategy that I'm going to teach you is called, that isn't on here, but is a general strategy that is called skipping questions. If you are not comfortable with the question, you read the question and then you don't even understand what the question is asking at all. Like you have no idea what the question is asking. You're like, what? I don't even know what that means. Skip the question, okay? What you should do is you should skip the question, and then what I call letter of the day, you're going to, for any question that you skip, you're just going to, for any question that you skip for that section, you're just going to mark a letter. For that section, you're just going to mark a letter. You can either change up the letter of the day, or you can either change up the letter that you're going to use as your placeholder for, depending on the section, or you can just go with the same letter for every single section, which I actually recommend you use the same letter. But if you want to be a little bit more, if you want to be a little bit more risky with it, then go ahead and change it up for each section. But for letter of the day, I say for that testing day, pick one letter, such as C, because C is correct, C for correct. And then if you don't know the answer to the question and you're skipping it, you choose to skip it, and you don't even, and the thought of coming back to the question isn't even in your mind at that point. You're just like, I'm just going to skip it, like I have no idea. You should still put an answer there because you're not penalized for incorrect answers. So just bubble in that letter of the day, so C, and then move on, okay? The next strategy is be literal, which literally is just be literal. And as I said, literally, just be literal. Yeah. And then the chain of literals. So it is exactly what it says. If it is stated in the answer choice or stated in the prompt, it means that exactly. So if it says, Jamie rides her bike every day, then if the passage or the question or the answer choices says that, then it means that Jamie does in fact ride her bike every day, 365 days in a year, every single day, okay? It's not an exaggeration, she actually reads it every day. They're being literal. So, for instance, if the answer choice says rapid, then there better be a reference to something occurring swiftly in the passage. If it doesn't say anything about it being quick or swift or rapid or anything like that in the passage, then it's wrong. Okay? So just be literal. And then your next strategy is judge your answers. So 75% of the answers on the SAT are incorrect. Okay, 75% of those multiple choice answer choices are incorrect. So stop spending time trying to justify why an answer could be correct. Like, oh, this one might be right. I mean, I can see why that one could be right. I can see why this is correct. No, stop that. If you're like, I can see why this is correct, or actually, yeah, that might be right, or sure, like, you have two choices. You can either put a squiggle next to it when you're like, I could do it, right? So when you're marking up your answers, you're going to put a squiggle next to the ones that you're unsure about, like it could be right, it could be wrong. You're going to cross out the ones that you think that you know for sure are wrong, and you're going to put a check mark next to the ones that you know for sure are right. Okay? And if you end up with 2 check marks, then you have to decide between them. Or 2 squigglies, no check marks, right? Then you need to choose between them. If you end up with 1 check mark and then all the rest are squigglies, or if you end up with 1 check mark, you know that one's the right answer. If you end up with 1 squiggly and then all the rest are crossed off, then you know that squiggly is right. All right. So basically, in order, and if you have them all crossed off, then you need to choose between all 4 of them. So in this case, how do we narrow down our answer choices if we have to decide between answer choices? In that case, what you should do is you should judge your answers. So you're going to judge between them by justifying why an answer choice is incorrect rather than correct, because 75% of the answer choices that you have out of the 4 are incorrect. You know that there's only 1 that is absolutely correct. See, because that 1 is absolutely correct, you need to stop looking for why something is right and start looking for why something is wrong. So if you see 1 answer choice that's right, and you see another choice that could be right, or 2 answer choices that could be right, so if you see 2 answer choices that you believe could be correct, and then you see that, okay, so this one is right because, and then this one is right because, then you're doing it wrong. Alright? What you should do is you should say, okay, this one is wrong, why could this one be wrong? And then look for a reason for why it could be wrong. And then the next one, look for another reason why it could be wrong. And if you can't find any reason for why it can be wrong, then that one is the right answer. And then if you can't find a reason for why any of them are wrong, or either of them could be wrong, then you need to pick one, or you can either pick one, do your letter of the day, or skip the question entirely. And again, that would be letter of the day, or just skip the question because you're not going to get penalized for trying. So you can either just skip the question, leave it blank, which is dumb because you can just put a random letter, and if you end up choosing the correct answer when you choose the random letter, then you're going to get, you get points for it, you get scored for it, you got it right. But if you don't leave anything there, then you're guaranteed to get it wrong. So I just recommend doing letter of the day, or just choosing at least 1 random answer, or selecting one of them. But don't take too much time, doing eeny, meeny, miny, moe, or something like that. Our next strategy is answer yourself. So you're going to come up with your own solution. So just cover up those answer choices, and then write in the white space of that question what you believe the answer to that question is, and then compare your solution to the answer choices, and then choose the one that most closely matches your answer choice. And if none of them match your answer choice, then you should either skip the question or look back at the passage. And then our last strategy is quick solution. So this can either apply to all SAT sections, but this really is most important in the reading section, because the reading section you have to read the passage, read the questions, read the answer choices, answer the questions, bubble in. You have to do 5 different things. While in the math one, you have to read the question, solve the question, answer the question, bubble the question. 4 things. And then in writing, you have to read the passage, read the question, and then answer the question. That's it. So it's 3 things. And then, so reading is the thing where you have to do the most different tasks. You have 5 tasks that you need to engage in, right? You have 5 tasks that you need to perform in order to successfully take the section and answer the questions properly, right? So you need to engage in this strategy mostly in the reading section. You can use this strategy in any of the sections, but mostly in the reading section. So what happens is that depending on the section, the time that you wait varies, and I'm about to get into what that time is. So if you can't think of an answer or are unable to decide on an answer choice within 15 seconds, I say for the reading section, that number can vary depending on the section if you're using it on a different section. But you have 3 options. You can either continue with the question, skip the question, or refer back to the prompt. Okay? And if you're doing other sections that don't have a prompt, right? Or refer back to the passage, right? So if you're taking the math section and you're doing quick solution, you wouldn't refer back to to the passage, you would just refer back to either like a data chart or whatever you have there. And then this will help you save time, because if it's like, okay, I'm spending too much time on this question at this point, I need to move on, or I need to try and figure out why I can't answer this question quickly. All right? So don't be unsure of yourself, but if you are unsure, then you need to realize the fact that you are unsure, and then use that to not waste time on the SAT, all right? And so that's it for all of our strategies for the reading section. I know, pretty short, but hopefully you will utilize these strategies, and I hope that you actually do some practice with these strategies before actually taking the test. So I'll see you in the next video.